Morning. Those who have read some of what I've written or listened to me before more than once or twice are probably familiar with the fact that while I teach and preach, I often speak out against religion and talk about the difference between religion and relationship. I even recently told someone who had been pretty shredded as the enemy used the human parts of the organization of the church and broken believers as the sifting tool to sift this person like wheat. And I flat out said, I understand being beaten and broken down by religion, been there, done that, ran to hell to escape it, and to be perfectly honest, would probably prefer to go back to that destruction and hell than back to that standard of religion. So it might surprise some to hear that I consider myself a very religious person, that I love religion, and that I'm grateful for religion. That may sound like I'm being a hypocrite or speaking out of both sides of my mouth or something like that, and I'm not. And it's not even that while I completely understand and agree with the historical fact that some of the, if not most of the worst wars and atrocities were done at least partially with the religious motive involved, I also understand that civilization was built on a foundation of religion and belief, and you probably aren't going to find somebody who would go and volunteer to live on an island with a bunch of lepers and spend their whole life there caring for those people without some religion involved. You know, to quote it's not about how much you could pay somebody, you know. To quote a movie I watched recently, what good is $1 million if you're dead? But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about definitions in a way. If you come up to me and you say, hey, I'm doing really good, like somebody did recently, and I just got a raise at work, I would not look at you and say, well, that's because you're silly. Because you would probably be offended, or at the very least confused, because that doesn't make any sense. But I happen to know that if you go back and you look at the word silly, the original meaning was to be worthy and to be blessed. Just like nice used to mean silly and foolish. And awful wasn't that disgusting milk that went bad. It was to be something that was wonderful and full of all. All full. But meanings change. Because language is alive. And when you tell people, even if they say the right words sometimes, what we believe and what we think when we hear the word religion or see the word religion is usually different than the truth of what Webster says. When I say truth, I just mean the standard definition. To believe in something greater than humanity that is supernatural, particularly a god or gods. A system of faith or beliefs I believe in God. That's under the definition religion. I have a system of faith and belief. Religion can also mean just a particular thing or interest of supreme importance. That word supreme is very key because, we would call it idolatry. It's religion. Whatever's most important. Sometimes what we place above God. But those aren't really the things people think of. And typically the way we act, there are some new definitions. And religion is our attempt to get to God. It's what we do to earn His favor, to earn His acceptance, to gain entrance into His presence, to have relationship with Him. And relationship is an ongoing fellowship with our Creator. So we tend to think of religion as what we sacrifice, what we vow, how we act towards God and others that makes us good enough to be His. And it puts the weight on us. And when we look at religion that way, I hate religion. And I think Jesus did too, because the only people that we have any example of Him not being extremely gentle and extremely patient with were the religious folks who seemed to think that what they did made them okay with God. And Jesus hates that because that is what kills us. Thinking we're okay, or thinking we can be okay based on what we do, or thinking we will be okay based on what we do, because then we don't get in the lifeboat. The very first sacrifice was not made by man. It was made by God on man's behalf. The very first vow or promise that would have anything to do with relationship between the Creator and the created was made by the Creator. It wasn't Adam, it wasn't Eve. It was God who said, "From your seed will come." And that very first sacrifice and that very first vow was pointing to the central point of history where God Himself would wrap Himself in flesh, come to earth, do what we were always supposed to do and couldn't, go to the cross and do for us what we could not do for ourselves, take our place and sacrifice Himself and make the vow, it is complete. It is finished. It is done. See, if you're looking at religion as anything that you have to do to approach God, you're going to kill yourself. You'll beat yourself into pieces. You can't live up to whatever standard you put on yourself. And you surely can't live up to the true standard of perfection. None of us can. But if you look at the truth of a belief in a superhuman being who doesn't demand that we figure out how to approach Him, but who approached us, I'll come to you. You can't make it to me. I'll come to you. I'll do whatever it takes because I love you as you are, not as you should be. And I love you enough not to leave you the stinking mess that you are. I care about you. Then religion is the most wonderful good news. Because everything comes down to we have a God who loves us. Yes, he's perfect and he's holy, and he can't let dirt in on his nice clean floor of his throne room. So he cleans us up. He doesn't demand that we get clean before we come in. And he let all of our dirt be put on him because we couldn't bear it. That is love. That's a God who cares. That's a God who did everything. The only sacrifice that mattered. The only vow that mattered was, I love you, and it is done. You don't have to do it. And no matter what you've done, and no matter what's been done to you, by heathens or by Christians, no matter what you did before you were a Christian, no matter what you did after you became a Christian, even if you acted like a worse heathen after coming to know Jesus than you did before. That's not possible. It is if you become a Christian young enough. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. And you can call that relationship and not religion, or you can call it religion. I don't care. But call it true, because it is. He cares about us. He's done everything we need. And his longing is for that relationship. So he bridged the gap. He comes to us. And all he wants now is for us to say, yes, we want that relationship, and allow him to bring us to him so that he can heal us, restore us, and fill our lives with love and peace and joy. So much so that we can turn around and give it away and bring others to him, because that's the point. It is all about relationship. And that's pretty good news in my book.